Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Ari Lax, and today I'm going to be bringing you a deck that has seen some fringe success in Modern from time to time. This list specifically popped up in the top 64 of Grand Prix Lille in the hands of Julien Felix Fleury, and I think that this list piqued my interest because it solved a couple interesting problems that other lists had had in the past, gained a few interesting cards. I like the direction it's heading. Um, this list is Restore Balance. So for those of you unfamiliar with Restore Balance, it's just balance with no mana cost and suspend. And as basically every no cost suspend card has been used, with the exception of Ancestral Vision, what you are trying to do is remove every card in your deck that costs 1 or 2 and cascade into it. So similar to Living End, we have Violent Outburst and Demonic Dread. And you'll notice that this specific duo allows you to overlap and not have the strained mana base that previous lists had, which were Ardent Plea and Violent Outburst. You just had these situations where you ended up with the wrong border posts in play, the wrong mana because you had to split between red, green, and blue-white, and now there's overlap of you need a red and then a green or a black, so things are a little smoother. So restore balance. So same, everyone sacrifices down the same number of lands, cards, same number of cards in hand, sacrifice down the same number of creatures. Easy part's creatures. You just really don't have them. Great. Lands. That's where the border posts come in. So you've got a bunch of alternate mana sources, but specifically the border posts let you return lands to your hand and make mana. So you'll have fewer lands in play, so your opponent has to sacrifice lands. This is the same basic premise as balance is usually followed, which was back in the day play Moxes. It doesn't count artifacts on the battlefield; it just counts lands, creatures, and cards in hand. So if you can put out resources that aren't those, you're all set. You may also notice that we have Planeswalkers. That is another card type that is not hit by Restore Balance. And they are also your win condition. So we have a Johnny Vengeance, which has kind of been a staple for a while. And we have one of the new additions I'm excited about, which is Nahiri the Harbinger. So we can just Nahiri our opponents out, kill things with it, loot away dead Restore Balances, dead cards. There's tons of those in this deck from time to time. And just take up and Emrakul our opponent. So we have a new angle of attack, which is pretty important for this kind of deck. Simian Spirit Guide, because, why would you try to do anything in Modern that's remotely broken without Simian Spirit Guide? And then our set of interactive spells. So, if we're Simian Spirit Guiding, we may as well Blood Moon. We have a bunch of artifact mana that dodges Blood Moon. We want to play a bunch of basics anyways, because we need basics for our border posts. Fits perfectly. Anger of the Gods is a sweeper. Restore Balance itself is a sweeper, but it's nice to have a little extra insurance against the faster decks. Some Anguished Unmaking as just a good old catch-all, another card that was gained in this deck since the last time I had played it. And Mardu Charm, which is not only an interactive spell in terms of discard and killing creatures at instant speed, but it also is potentially a win condition by creating warrior tokens. Sorry, Khans was warriors. So, The thing that kind of captured me about this list was the border post split kind of, this mana base shift allowing the border post split to really work the way you want it to, I think. Also worth noting, there's Greater Gargadons. It is that if you sacrifice all your lands to Greater Gargadon, then you have no lands when you restore balance. Pretty easy. And that was this border post split being what you wanted to. That's what really drove me to this list. So I do also like that we're playing a bunch of basic planes to go with our border post. That mana split is nice. You are weak to Abrupt Decay, but that card's been intermittently hit or miss, and I think there's a little less of it right now than there has been in the past. You're weak to Stony Silence, but I think that card's also on the downswing. Mana's pretty straightforward, just a bunch of fetches and basics. Moving the sideboard, again, we're constrained by not having any 0, 1, or 2 cost spells, so we have a bunch of ley lines. Pretty obvious what Leyline of the Void and Sanctity are for. Burn, graveyard decks, decks with discard, things like that. You have a Slaughter Games to KO opposing combo decks, as well as Pick the Brain as a slightly faster version of the same effect. Um, Also as discard against counterspells. You aren't the best at getting Delirium, to be fair, but you can do it. So this is slightly worse against opposing combo decks than Slaughter Games, but at the same time, speed is important in the format. And then Lingering Souls as an alternate win condition and a way to, against something like Affinity, pick off their flyers if you need to, get back in the game and not die. That is kind of counterintuitive with Restore Balance, but sometimes against Affinity, you've gotten into spots where they have Nexi that won't die or things like that. So you may need Lingering Souls to mop up the mess that's left behind. So I'm excited to get some games with this deck and see kind of where it falls on the scale. If it has the same kind of petering out issues that it sometimes has, where you wipe their board and you need to wipe it again later, or if the addition of Nahiri's really kind of ticked up the power level, or if the mana fix has really made it that much better.